Welcome to Feedback and Acknowledgement, TFI Feature 1.9, a module in the PBIS Fundamental Learning Series. My name is Evan Moss, and I am a PBIS coach for Virginia Beach City Public Schools. We always begin with the shared understanding of what Positive Behavioral Interventions and Supports, or PBIS, is in Virginia Beach. Anchored to Goal 2 within our strategic framework, PBIS focuses on the goal of student well-being. PBIS is a data-informed decision-making framework for establishing the social, culture, and behavioral and academic supports needed for a school to be an effective learning environment for all students. Every goal within the strategic framework has an embedded equity emphasis. Within Goal 2, we are focused on engaging in culturally responsive practices division-wide. We identify and address inequities in discipline practices by investigating and implementing best practices and seeking innovative solutions. Through PBIS, Virginia Beach City Public Schools has a desire to move toward more equitable discipline and foster a positive school climate. Through the use of a tiered framework, PBIS provides support for all at the Tier 1 level, some at the Tier 2 level, and a few at the Tier 3 level. Tier 1 involves several core components or supports. These supports include relationship and community building, a common language of expectations, consistent structure and routines, student engagement, pro-social behavior acknowledgement, and effective responses to inappropriate behavior. Our learning intentions for this module are to understand the characteristics of effective acknowledgement for increasing desired behaviors, understand the components of behavior-specific feedback, and increase the ratio of acknowledgement to corrective statements. Brainstorm possibilities for a school-wide acknowledgement system for students and staff. And finally, we will plan for involving staff, students, and families in developing acknowledgements. Looking at the Tier 1 Professional Learning Roadmap, you will notice that feedback and acknowledgement consists of its own feature, Feature 1.9 in the implementation subscale. We will also be looking at 2 classroom behavioral supports, providing specific acknowledgement for desired behaviors and a continuum of responses for inappropriate behaviors. Take a moment to read the definition of the Feature 1.9 along with possible data sources and the feature scoring criteria. Notice that in order to receive a score of 2, the acknowledgement system must be used by at least 90% of staff and received by at least 50% of students. Remember, that is our minimum. We would like for 100% of staff and students to be utilizing and receiving the acknowledgement system. We will start today by defining what an acknowledgement system is. It is a system that provides immediate, intermittent, and long-term reinforcements given by adults in the building to any students displaying desired school-wide expectations. The purpose of the system is not to ensure compliance, but rather to celebrate student success and achievement. In the following video, you will take a deeper dive into acknowledgement systems and their purpose. As you watch the video, consider what constitutes an acknowledgement and the importance of positive feedback.
While it's true that PBIS involves positive acknowledgement of student success, there is no requirement that schools provide any tangible points or prizes. The real key is that adults focus on increasing the amount of positive feedback that students receive. If students aren't able to earn such positive feedback, then instruction is not successful and must change. Of course, simplest feedback is just basic private acknowledgement. Anytime we use words to indicate to a student that he or she has been successful, we are using verbal praise. And if we use a gesture such as a thumbs up or a smile, it can have the same effect. The key is that the student knows what the words or gestures indicate. There's nothing novel about verbal praise, but we have decades of data showing that adults use it with students at rates that are extremely low. Thanks, that's great, correct, and even yes are all examples, But to increase the effectiveness, it is recommended that feedback also be as specific as possible, ensuring that the student knows exactly what behavior warranted the praise. So instead of "good," we might say, "You got every single thing put away on time, good for you." But sometimes students need more than just verbal praise. Students with a history of failure or who have little confidence may require increased levels of reinforcement. In addition, students with high rates of success sometimes deserve an additional acknowledgement. For these students, public acknowledgement may be an effective second layer of positive feedback. As part of PBIS, schools often develop a range of public acknowledgements, including certificates, the posting of pictures on the wall, signing a wall of fame, and even announcing exemplary behavior over the morning announcements. While not every student would like being called out publicly, most everyone likes some form of larger acknowledgement, even if it's simply a note home. Again, while there is nothing inherent in PBIS that requires the use of tokens or tickets, many PBIS schools do so. Sometimes the use of tokens or tickets is the most effective way of getting adults to remember to provide that feedback. While I may forget to say thanks to students for walking in the hall, keeping a fistful of tokens may act as a good reminder. But make no mistake, for the average student, simply increasing the amount of verbal feedback they receive for success will be just as effective as more tangible awards.
So why do we use an acknowledgement system? The quote on the screen says it all. Every time any adult interacts with a student, it is an instructional moment. Instruction isn't always about academics. We can also teach students expected pro-social behaviors. When we utilize an acknowledgement system, we foster a positive school climate and sense of accomplishment and community. We increase the likelihood that desired behaviors will be repeated by students, and it also reinforces the teaching of new behaviors. Acknowledgement systems focus staff and student attention on the desired and wanted behaviors while reducing the need for engaging in time-consuming disciplinary measures. When creating a school-wide acknowledgement system, there are some guidelines we should be sure to follow. First, acknowledgement systems are for all students, and they are used to acknowledge expected pro-social behavior. When developing a system, it is important to gather input from stakeholders to help identify the most appropriate acknowledgements. Teachers and staff should be able to acknowledge students across the building and not just focus on their own classroom. And the acknowledgement should be contingent upon the student following desired behaviors. In order to extend the shelf life of the system, consider ways to keep it new and novel and add excitement. We will explore many ways of doing this throughout the module. When someone mentions PBIS, we often get the reaction from some, "Oh, great. Now we have to start handing out candies and goodies." The good news is that that statement is just a myth. The function of the acknowledgement is, in fact, to increase the amount of positive feedback being delivered to students. Let's take a moment to explore other common myths about acknowledgement systems and clear up those misconceptions with facts. The first myth, PBIS means we only give out rewards. Wrong. The truth is, PBIS focuses on proactive teaching and recognizing when students follow desired behaviors. The positive in PBIS refers to the school climate, which supports learning environments where students and teachers feel appreciated, respected, and safe. Behavior-specific feedback is used to teach and reinforce students in making pro-social choices. The next myth, we will no longer have consequences for inappropriate behavior. The truth is, PBIS does not ignore inappropriate behavior. Schools respond to inappropriate behavior in accordance with the Virginia Beach City Public Schools Code of Student Conduct, matching consequences to the severity of the behavior in order to maintain consistency and safety across the school. PBIS views appropriate consequences as those that are effective in changing the student's inappropriate behavior. And our last myth, PBIS uses bribes to get students to behave. But the truth is, PBIS acknowledges students for following school-wide expectations after the behavior occurs. Thus, acknowledgement is earned, not offered as payoff in exchange for good behavior. Acknowledgement systems, unique to each school, are used to provide intentional focus on behavior-specific feedback that reinforces those school-wide expectations. The definition of acknowledgement systems explicitly state 3 types of reinforcements: immediate, intermittent, and long-term reinforcements. For example, the immediate reinforcement or immediate acknowledgement could be a ticket for following the expectations. At Woodstock Elementary, they use something called the Chuck Bucks. Our next layer of reinforcement would be an intermittent acknowledgement. And this isn't something that happens as scheduled or unexpectedly. And that would be something like a weekly ticket drawing from the students who earned those Chuck Bucks throughout the week. And finally, those long-term school-wide celebrations are our long-term reinforcements. And these would be things like a school celebration for meeting a ticket goal or for meeting a goal as a group. Immediate, high frequency, and predictable reinforcements are the most commonly and often include those ticket systems. These reinforcements are delivered at a high rate for a short period while teaching new behaviors or responding to problem behaviors. When we use immediate, high frequency, and predictable reinforcements, we name the behavior that we see and we tie it back to the school-wide expectation. The second layer, intermittent reinforcements, bring surprise attention to certain behaviors, or they are done at a scheduled time or interval. We use them to maintain a taught behavior. And finally, the final layer, long-term celebrations or reinforcements, celebrate and acknowledge a collective accomplishment. They should include all kids and adults in the school. A school-wide dance party for meeting a goal would be an example. We are going to look at some examples of immediate, high-frequency, predictable acknowledgement systems that have been used across the division. As we review them, take note of how each system is tied directly to the school's core values. You'll also notice that some of these acknowledgements are for individuals, while others use a group contingency approach. Consider also which type of immediate system would work best at your school. At College Park Elementary, they collect Cougar Cash as a class. So when students are following the appropriate behavior or showing pro-social behavior, they slide a token onto their point board. And then as a class, they decide on what their incentive or their reward will be. At Plaza Middle School, hand out positive referrals as their acknowledgement system. So when a student or a teacher sees a student following the expected behavior, they will complete this positive referral and send it to the office, where then the student is acknowledged and the positive referral is mailed home. At Centerville Elementary, they use Dolphins Doing It Right tickets, and they add these tickets to the splash tank once the student has been acknowledged for following the expectations. At Salem High School and at Tallwood High School, they had students develop tickets in order to create a virtual acknowledgement system. Using a Google form, teachers were able to complete their acknowledgement, and these tickets would be emailed to the students so that they could then share them with their families at home. And another example would be at Lansdowne Middle School. They use the Lansdowne Lancer Gotcha. This is also a ticket system where students can be acknowledged for being respectful, responsible, and ready to learn. More examples include at Glenwood Elementary School, administrators do a happy call of the day home each day to acknowledge students in the school who have followed the expectations and are being Gator great. Another example is at one school, they used Flipgrid for students and staff to record acknowledgements for each other. And then these Flipgrid shout-outs were shown on the morning announcements for Flipgrid Friday feature. At Brookwood Elementary School, they acknowledge students with the Brookwood Braves badge, where they can go home and their parents can ask them about how they earned that badge. And at Cox High School, they recognize each other using the Soaring Falcons. A teacher or a student can complete the following ticket, and in return, this postcard congratulating the student on being a Soaring Falcon is mailed home. They've also created a QR code to make it easier to complete the nomination form so that more people can be acknowledged for following the expected behaviors. Next, we'll see some examples of intermittent or unexpected acknowledgements. As review each, notice how these are less frequent acknowledgements and are used to maintain taught behaviors as well as bring surprise attention to pro-social behaviors. At Tallwood Elementary, they have the Timberwolves ticket tank. As students earn tickets for following the expectations, they then place those tickets into the ticket tank where they have weekly drawings to be recognized on the announcements. At Brookwood Elementary School, PE teachers pass out the I Make a Change chain to students who are displaying respectful, responsible, and safe behavior during PE. At Tallwood Elementary, when PE students are following the Wolf's Way, they can earn a trophy that can be displayed into their classroom, and then they're acknowledged later with a goodie bag. At Cook Elementary School, they use a house system, and weekly, the students are able to work together in order to bring home a spirit cup by being responsible and following the school-wide expectations. Another intermittent acknowledgement happened at Christopher Farms Elementary School. Students were able to pick out costume for Miss Backer and Miss Porter for their Booster-thon run. They earned this privilege by collecting a set amount of tickets of their Golden Colt tickets. At times, schools include incentives with their intermittent acknowledgements. Whether students are exchanging collected tickets for a reward or incentive, or a class is choosing a group reward for meeting a common goal, we want to do our best to tie these acknowledgements to a school-related item or activity. On the slide, you will see a chart with examples of acknowledgement ideas for elementary and secondary students. Take a moment to review this. While we encourage non-tangible rewards, we have also shared ideas for tangible rewards that still relate directly to the school experience. Marketing your acknowledgement system will also increase buy-in. On the screen are examples of tangible intermittent rewards that directly relate to the school's expectations. One idea to generate buzz and excitement around your acknowledgement system would be to brand your incentives. By doing so, you are increasing visibility of your school's expectations and values while also helping students develop a sense of school pride. The last type of acknowledgement we will be discussing are long-term celebrations. This form of acknowledgement celebrates the accomplishments of students and includes all members of the school community. Examples from across the division include a masquerade ball at Christopher Farms Elementary School. At Holland Elementary School, the students reached their school-wide PBIS goal and chalked the walk by creating beautiful portraits with sidewalk chalk. Another school-wide dance party was used as a long-term celebration. And then this class was able to earn a class picnic by filling up their sticker chart. Successful acknowledgement systems include input from stakeholders. When developing the school system, feedback should be received from teachers and staff, students, and families. On the next few slides, we will discuss how we can obtain stakeholder input for developing a school-wide acknowledgement system. As we review them, consider how you may obtain stakeholder input. When we are developing our acknowledgement system and getting input from staff, some tools that we can use to obtain this feedback would be surveys, polls, or things like digital whiteboards and Jamboards. Our next topic would be how and when are we going to get this input? We can do it by sending it out through email, gathering this information at grade level meetings or PLCs, during staff meetings. We can put QR codes to the survey in common areas such as the teacher staff lounge or the mailroom. And we can also obtain feedback through the principal advisory committee. And as we're developing this system, some questions to help us obtain staff input would include things like, what incentives do you find to be the most meaningful? How do you personally like to be acknowledged? Do you think a paper or a digital acknowledgement system would be more effective at our school? Do you currently have a system for acknowledging students in your own classroom? What is your opinion on the school's current acknowledgement system? And do you have any suggestions for changes? And do you know some ways that your students like to be acknowledged? Next, we'll look at some examples of how feedback has been solicited from students across Virginia Beach. In the first example, you will see a Google survey. At Centerville Elementary School, this survey was distributed to all students to help the PBIS team determine what was the best reward for the whole school celebration. The next example is from Kempsville Middle School. During advisory, teachers solicited ideas for the school-wide acknowledgement system, as well as how to roll it out. And finally, this is a video from a previous acknowledgement system at Corporate Landing Elementary School. As we view the video, you'll notice how directions were provided for students to provide input on those intermittent rewards.
Hi, I'm Sam, and I'm here with the Dolphin Update. At Corporate Landing Elementary School, we're dolphins who show CLES. We care about our community. We learn safely and responsibly. We earn and give respect, and we strive to do our best. We are CLES. When someone sees you showing CLES, you might receive one of these, a dynamic dolphin ticket. Make sure your name is on your ticket and put it wherever your teacher collects them. Then, every 2 weeks, we'll draw dynamic dolphin winners from each class. Each class will help fill our school dolphin tank. Once we fill our tank halfway, we'll celebrate as a school. But we need your help. How do you want to celebrate? Should Mrs. Kuhn and Mrs. Niehoff do a dance? Sing a song? Dye their hair? What do you want to do to celebrate showing CLES? Leave your idea in the bucket in the library. Remember, dolphins care about their community, learn safely and responsibly, earn and give respect, and strive to do our best.
Families are also an important part of our school community, so it is vital that we get their input as well. We can do so by sending out surveys, polls, offering virtual or in-person roundtable discussions and focus groups. And how and when are we going to get this input? Very similar to how we did with teachers. We can do it through emails. We can gather this information through family after-school events, in newsletters. We can send home some surveys or some questionnaires in the students' weekly communication folders. We can gather this input during parent-teacher conferences and also at PTA meetings. Some questions that will help us obtain stakeholder input from our families would be things like, are you aware of the school-wide acknowledgement system at your school, child's school, and how it works? Has your child received the school-wide acknowledgement this year? And what type of incentives do you find to be the most meaningful to your child? Which acknowledgements do they respond to well? Once the school has developed the system, the next step is to roll it out to staff and students and families. The rollout should include what the acknowledgement system is, how it works, and the expectations for use. We can share this information with our stakeholders in a variety of ways. Starting with staff, we can share out our acknowledgement system and how it works at staff meetings during PLC. We can create a how-to video and share it. We can create a reference document, which is kind of what you see listed in the all staff box. When College Park Elementary School was creating their Cougar credits, they created a guide that showed how to complete the Cougar credit and then what to do with it once you have filled it out and gave it to the student. We can also add this information to our staff newsletters or create a display in our staff lounge. When we are sharing our acknowledgement system with our students, this can be done during assemblies, during morning announcements or on the morning news, during advisory. And we can also include our students in rolling out the acknowledgement system. In the picture in the students box, this is at Christopher Farms Elementary School. And though it's hard to see, this is a picture of students leading a assembly to their peers where they are reminding the students of the school-wide expectations or the COLTS code, and then rolling out the acknowledgement system and how the classrooms can go about earning the golden COLT. And finally, sharing the acknowledgement systems with families can happen through things like recorded videos, newsletters, having parent or family nights at school, through emails, or things like community partnerships. Students are not the only part of a school community that should be acknowledged for positive pro-social behavior. It is also important that we include teachers and staff. When we do this, our teachers remain motivated and feel appreciated. School community partnerships are a great way to obtain incentives such as gift cards that can be included in teacher acknowledgements. Just like students, tangible rewards are not necessary. A simple thank you note goes a long way to show appreciation. On the next few slides, we will review examples of staff acknowledgement from across the division. At Green Run High School, they acknowledge a teacher monthly as the Teacher of the Month, where they are provided with a certificate and a school spirit shirt. At Lynn Haven Elementary School, they acknowledge the substitutes in their building for all of the hard work that they have done with these goodie bags. College Park Elementary School acknowledge their cafeteria staff with these goodie buckets to let them know how important they were to their school community. And at Lansdowne High School, one of their high school seniors created individually wrapped cupcakes as a way of showing their thanks and appreciation. Another school used paper staff shout outs that students could fill out and share with staff to acknowledge the hard work that they do. At Rosemont Elementary School, the positive referrals are not just for the students. Teachers have the opportunity to earn them as well. And several of our schools in the division acknowledge monthly for making a difference with the I Make a Difference award. On the screen, you will see an elementary teacher from Woodstock sharing her excitement for being named the I Make a Difference winner for the month. Providing acknowledgement should be paired with behavior-specific feedback. Behavior-specific feedback or acknowledgement is verbal or written feedback that is descriptive, specific, and delivered contingent upon a student demonstrating expected behaviors. We use behavior-specific acknowledgement to provide increased opportunities for building positive relationships with students, as well as increasing the likelihood that that pro-social positive behavior will occur again. Outlined specifically on the left are the three critical components of behavior-specific acknowledgement. In this video, we will see the difference between giving praise authentically in a way that's reinforcing to the student, and then giving praise sarcastically in a way that embarrasses the student.
Behavior-specific praise, high school, example, and non-example. Daniel typically comes to Ms. Fisher's class unprepared and without the proper materials, so it's a nice surprise when he shows up today ready for class. In this example, Ms. Fisher uses behavior-specific praise to acknowledge that Daniel came to class prepared. Note how she states his name and then specifically describes his behavior.
All right, everyone, take out your rough drafts of your short stories. I'm going to come around and check them. Thank you. Oh, Daniel, you have your rough draft. Great job. Yeah.
To review, the teacher implemented behavior-specific praise correctly. She stated the student's name and delivered praise specific to the student's behavior. In addition, Ms. Fisher delivered the praise in an age-appropriate way, speaking to Daniel quietly and without attracting unwanted attention. In this non-example, Ms. Fisher attempts to offer behavior-specific praise, but her efforts fall short. Pay close attention to the ways in which her delivery and tone prove ineffective.
All right, everyone, please take out your rough drafts of your short stories. I'm going to come around and check. Oh, Daniel, good job. You did your rough draft.
Yeah, I worked really hard on it.
First assignment I think you've done in a while.
To review, Ms. Fisher attempted to provide behavior-specific praise. She used the student's name and said, "Good job, you did your rough draft." However, her attempt was ineffective because her praise was followed by a sarcastic comment and delivered loud enough for other students to hear, potentially embarrassing the student.
Behavior-specific acknowledgement is trauma-informed as well as culturally responsive. Looking through the trauma-informed lens, when we use behavior-specific acknowledgement, we are building students' self-esteem and helping them to gain a positive sense of self. We help to create predictability, and when we are using this form of acknowledgement, we are becoming aware of our own vulnerable decision points and cultural competencies. Looking through the culturally responsive lens, behavior-specific acknowledgement helps us to establish relationships with students that will then determine what support is the most effective for them. Behavior-specific acknowledgement also helps us to recognize strengths and interests of our students and provide brief and specific feedback. Behavior-specific acknowledgement also connects to class agreements and values which are meaningful to our students. Next, we are going to view some examples of how students can take ownership and create a culture of acknowledgement using shout outs or a strategy called appreciation, apology, aha.
Front table shout outs.
I have a shout out for Annalia. She got to work really fast.
A shout out is a positive comment given from one peer to another. Shout outs are such an effective strategy for anyone, and you can throw them in anywhere. They're easy, they're quick. The first thing is a ding on my little chime, which gets everyone's attention. I see almost everybody. I will ask each group to give a shout out to someone that they noticed was doing a particularly good job or doing something that was difficult for them.
I have a shout out for Dan and Alex because she was working really hard on her chicken.
Awesome, awesome. It's not just me as the teacher saying, "You're doing well." It's a way for them to interact with each other and celebrate positivity. We notice, we focus on the things that are going well.
I have a shout out to Jamari because he was reading good.
Yeah.
It's appreciation, apology, or aha.
The closing circle activity is called the 3 A's, appreciation, apologies, and ahas. So the whole purpose is just to have some space to reflect on our day.
All I want you to do is to stand around the room somewhere in a circle while we do our brief shout out.
People can either identify an appreciation they have, an apology they have, or an aha, moment where there's like a light bulb moment in their head.
My aha was that race is not the only part of our identity. So can we get a few people to shout out an appreciation, apology, or aha?
I want to appreciate Jonathan He helped me like kind of figure out where I wanted to go with my personal statement.
I think those types of appreciations or like community recognitions can go a long way to build the bonds. That's the whole point, right? Building community.
I apologize for having my headphones in half of the time to everyone.
Thanks a lot for that, Carlos. That means a lot.
What do we do when we need to correct behavior? Obviously, we are not going to use our acknowledgement system as a quid pro quo or a form of bribery. When we see unwanted behavior, we should utilize behavior-specific error correction to remind and reteach the expected behavior. Behavior feedback in the form of error correction is an informative statement to students by a teacher following the occurrence of undesired behavior. Effective responses to inappropriate behavior are always calm, consistent, brief, immediate, and respectful. And we use error correction so that we can identify the undesired behavior and use that as an opportunity to reteach a replacement behavior. Error correction is a part of the continuum of responses to inappropriate behavior. It is not the only thing that we do. It is on a continuum. Effective responses to inappropriate behavior are calm, consistent, and take place immediately after the behavior. They're specific in that they tell exactly what the student is doing and describes the replacement behavior. They are brief and respectful. As mentioned previously, error correction is a part of the behavior continuum. Each school should revisit their school's behavior flowchart at least annually. For example, what are classroom managed behaviors? What strategies can teachers use to be proactive and responsive to those behaviors? What behaviors are office managed? Are all staff, even new teachers, familiar with this? Do all staff know the process for getting help? When providing effective error correction, one strategy that we can use is the VAB approach. Critical foundations of the VAB approach include, first, to validate. Validate students and ask them to share their experiences and listen non-judgmentally. The A stands for affirm. State the positive intent of students' behaviors when teaching situational appropriateness, and hold high expectations for each student. B, build. Provide specific instruction about why certain behaviors are necessary in the school. And finally, we will bridge by providing encouraging, skill-based, non-judgmental corrections when they're needed. Consider which of these 4 strategies you feel would have been most meaningful for you as a student. Let's take a moment to look at a real live example of how we can respond to behavior using the VAB approach.
What happened at school?
I took a headlock down and Jack and took it down.
You took him down? Why? What did he say?
Because kids don't get married, so that's why I put a headlock down on him.
Did he say he wanted to marry you?
Yeah, but kids don't get married, so that's why I put a headlock down on him. And that's why I took him down.
I don't think you're supposed to do that.
But that's the greatest thing ever.
So obviously, we're not allowed to put our friends in headlocks and take them down when they say something that we don't agree with. But how can we respond to the student using the VAB approach so that we reteach the expected behavior while also validating their feelings and building and bridging with what's appropriate? So first we could validate by saying, I know you didn't like how Jack said that he wanted to marry you. We're going to affirm the student and let them know you understand how they're feeling. We could say something like, you're right, kids are too young to get married. That's something that you wait to do until you're an adult. Then the next thing we'll do is bridge and explain why those behaviors aren't safe. It is important that we act safely at school. Could there be another way we let Jack know we didn't like what he said to us? And then finally, we will bridge. Instead of using our hands, the next time someone says something you disagree with, Try using your words and letting them know that you disagree. By providing behavior-specific error correction, especially using the VAB approach, we are being culturally responsive as well as trauma-informed. Looking through the trauma-informed lens, behavior-specific error correction provides strategies that will empower the student. It also offers us opportunities to reteach skills. We are giving the students a continuum of responses to improve their self-regulation, and we are developing self-awareness about vulnerable decision points. Looking through the culturally responsive lens, behavior-specific error correction helps to create authentic relationships where shared trust comes first. It helps us to hold high expectations for our students, plus lets them know that we believe in them and encourages motivation. We seek to understand the context of a behavior. And with behavior-specific error correction, the goal is to create a supportive, positive, and engaging classroom culture for all students. Next, I would like for you to review the scenario on the slide and consider how you would give behavior-specific error correction using the VAB approach. Make sure to take note of your response because you'll be asked to record it on the Google exit ticket in order to receive professional learning points. So our error correction scenario says, a teacher is concerned about a student who does no work. When the teacher asks the student why, the student says, I don't care. He is failing and he's in danger of staying back, but he says he doesn't care about that either. During class, he either sits with his head down or talks to a few other students. So again, consider how we can provide behavior-specific error correction using the VAB approach with this student. Now that we've had the opportunity to discuss developing our acknowledgement systems, getting stakeholder input and rolling them out, and we've also talked about behavior-specific feedback in the form of error correction and acknowledgement, let's go over some frequently asked questions about acknowledgement systems. Our first question is, should I give reinforcements to students that ask for them? No, it's up to the discretion of the adult to disperse the acknowledgement. Reinforcements are contingent upon students demonstrating those expected behaviors. Remember that the acknowledgement system is not a tool for bribery or a quid pro quo. Our next question, why should I reinforce students who are already doing well behaviorally? School-wide acknowledgements are Tier 1 support, and Tier 1 supports are available to all students. When we reinforce students who are already displaying pro-social behavior, we show that we have appreciation for their efforts, we acknowledge their presence, and we provide an example to other students while creating opportunities to build rapport with them. This also encourages students to keep up the great work. Should we keep using school-wide acknowledgements with students identified as needing Tier 2 or Tier 3 supports? Absolutely. You can individualize them to fit the student need, but they serve as the foundation for Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions. Can we include students with an IEP, with a 504 plan, or a behavior intervention plan? Again, absolutely. You can individualize acknowledgements as needed. The student started misbehaving after I gave them the acknowledgement. Can I go ahead and take it back? No way, Jose. Once you've earned it, it's theirs to keep. However, you can reteach or give a related consequence if necessary to address the current misbehavior. I know it sounds tempting to take back the ticket, but just like adults who do a job, we don't have our paycheck taken back when we make a mistake, so we wouldn't do that for students either. I currently have a classroom behavior management system. I use color cards or a clip chart. Maybe I have stones in a jar or a number system. Can I still use these? That's a yes or no question. Yes and no. What we would like for you to do is compare your practices to PBIS. Think about your classroom acknowledgement system and ask yourself these questions. Is my acknowledgement system proactive or is it reactive? Does it include teaching, pre-correcting, redirects before consequences? Does your system include reteaching as part of a consequence? Does your system also acknowledge students when they are displaying appropriate behaviors? And do you take away acknowledgements once they are earned? If so, we don't want to do that. So finally, to end our discussion today, I would like you to take a moment to read the following article, The Necessity of Finding More Ways to Praise. As you're reading the article, I would like for you to consider the following questions. First, why is the acknowledgement to error correction ratio important? And second, how can I keep track of specific feedback in order to provide more? Thank you for taking the time to participate in this module on Feedback and Acknowledgement Feature 1.9. Feel free to reach out to your PBIS school coach if you have any questions or concern or would like more information about this topic.